Jeff Sutherlin Show. Let's grow today as we learn from decades of real estate and leadership experience.
We want you to know that when you log into this show, you're going to get authentic conversation. We're going to give it to you straight, and it's going to be real.
Well, hey, everybody, Jeff Sutherlin on the Jeff Sutherlin Show, and Chase is out there selling houses like crazy, so he's not with us. But I have another business partner with me today, and this is Rich Galster, and Rich is out of North Dakota, and he also sells down in Arizona with me, and we partner with many other commercial professionals around the country. So we thought, wouldn't it be cool to kind of do a series to explain to our audience the differences between residential and commercial? And Rich, welcome to the show. Is it cold where you're at right now?
It is, my friend. It's not as bad as it has been, though. Hey, we're in the 30s, so we'll take it.
So before we get started, Rich, tell us a little bit about your background, man, and then we can get into some of the content for today.
Yeah, I started my career in the investment financial planning world and slowly migrated into the world of real estate. I had a couple of partners that we started investing in some multifamily properties and kind of expanded that into some development projects and just kind of built a business on the real estate side. And then at some point I decided it probably made sense to get my real estate license and start working that. And that's what I've been pretty much doing ever since. Moved to Arizona about 7-8 years ago. And in the last year or so, we've been mostly back here in North Dakota. We've got grandkids we're taking care of, helping to take care of, and aging parents we're helping to take care of. So yeah, it's I've got two daughters, two granddaughters. So lots of girls in our family at this point.
That's awesome. So when Rich moved down to Arizona, we knew we had a commonality. He was the expert in commercial. I was the expert in residential, and I always wanted to learn commercial. So Rich took me under his wing. And so we kind of mentored each other in both of our niches. And so now, as a team, Rich and I do very well together. We work together quite a bit, actually, helping clients, a lot of them being in Arizona. And I'm more the client-facing person, going out there, meeting with clients, meeting with the vendors, putting signs up, doing a lot of the marketing. Rich does a lot of the analysis, and he's very good at evaluating property. And he understands commercial at a very deep level. Today, we're excited because we can kind of share with you the differences. And as we get into these conversations, we'll dig a little deeper, and I hope that you guys ask questions in the chat because we love to be able to answer you and get back to you on those questions. So Rich, let's kick it off a little bit and talk about property types. If you were to look at, what are the key differences between residential and commercial in terms of what are they both involve?
Yeah, I think residential is pretty straightforward. I mean, generally it's, your own, where a person is living, single family homes and apartments, condominiums, that sort of thing. Commercial is on a much wider spectrum. You've got everything from office properties to industrial land, large multifamily properties, office, all of those different property types fall under the category of commercial.
Yeah, that is a huge difference. In fact, a lot of people think, oh gosh, I'm very good at selling residential real estate. How hard can commercial be? Well, let me tell you, it is a huge learning curve. It is a huge learning curve because there's so many things that are different, which we'll unpack between the two. And there's a lot of different aspects of commercial real estate. As you mentioned, I mean, it's not just apartment buildings. It's so many different things, so many different ways to actually transact commercial real estate, leasing, buying, selling buildings, making sure your ROI is correct for the landlord. There's just so many other things, to look at when it comes to commercial real estate.
Yeah, I mean, you're working with buyers of investment buyers. You're working with owner-user buyers. Same thing on the lease side. We represent we do a lot of tenant representation. Work with a lot of small businesses, helping them find their next location. Yeah, there's just one of the things I like most about it is that there really is a huge variety on the commercial side. I started off in residential as well, did some residential, grew up in a smaller area, so really worked kind of both sides, but I really love the commercial side of it. It's just a whole different atmosphere. And I love the spreadsheets, I love math, I love crunching numbers, and that's a big part of what commercial real estate is.
Well, and that's a good segue. And my next point is, I've been selling residential for 25 years, and let's face it, it is emotional. People have an emotional response when they come into a home, and either they love it or they don't, and they get attached to that. And so there's a lot of emotions in residential real estate and commercial, which I kind of enjoy this part about commercial. It's really kind of about the numbers. It's going to pencil out to work or it's not. And do you find, Rich, that it's a lot less emotional than residential real estate?
Yeah, for the most part, I think so. Sometimes when you're dealing with tenant leases, a small business, maybe it's their first time looking for a property to lease. Maybe they've been working out of their home, working out of their garage, and have grown the business enough to where they need to find a small flex industrial space or a small retail space. In those cases, I think you probably have a little bit more emotions involved, but generally, no, it's kind of about the math, right? You gotta make the numbers work, make the deal fit to their budget, time frame, that sort of thing.
Yep. That's right. That's right. Now let's shift to financing. Let's talk a little bit. We'll stay kind of at a high level today, and in the next session, as we get going, we'll unpack these a little bit more. But like when you look at financing with residential real estate versus commercial, residential, you got your conforming conventional loans, you got your FHA loans, which are backed by the government. You've got VA loans. So there's really kind of a few that we have, right? There's not like 50 different loan programs. I know there's subset loan programs, but those are the main categories when it comes to residential, and often having lower down payment requirements for housing for residential. What would be the difference in commercial?
Yeah, for commercial purchases, I mean, it depends a lot on there's a difference between owner user purchases and investment purchases. So as an owner user, they might be able to take advantage of SBA financing. We recently completed a deal that involved some SBA financing. So we have some lenders that we work with and recommend. Otherwise, a lot of the people that we work with have their own lenders that they work with as well. But it's really a matter of packaging the right loan programs with the deal. So, like I said, under the SBA type financing, you can use a lot more leverage. You might be able to get into a property that you're moving your business into for as little as 10% down. Rates are a little bit lower on the SBA financing. When it comes to investment property, it's completely different. You might have, first of all, you're probably going to have a much higher amount of equity you need to put in. I mean, I've seen deals that required 30, 40%. The individual or group had to put in up front and then borrow, 40, 60%, something like that. So really depends on the transaction.
Yeah. And for our audience, can you explain SBA? What is SBA?
SBA is just a government program that is designed for small businesses, and it just allows for a small business to get into a new property with a lesser amount up front. Since a lot of small businesses, obviously, you're starting out, you don't have a lot of cash in the bank generally, and just allows you to purchase a property with a lot lower equity up front.
Got it. So with residential, if you're interested in purchasing a home and you want to finance the house, so you're not buying it with cash, one of the first things we do as a residential real estate agent is to get them with a lender, a mortgage banker or a mortgage broker. If it's a mortgage broker, that allows that broker to work with multiple banks and shop the rates. That's one of the first things we do because we don't want to necessarily go show a bunch of houses to somebody if they're not qualified for that house. And that would be kind of demoralizing for the buyer as well. So we like to get those things done up front. So that's how we would do it on the residential side. On the commercial side, what's different on the commercial side when somebody wants to buy a building? Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not a lot different, honestly. I mean, I think that there should be should be communication with a lender pretty early on, just to make sure that we understand what kind of properties we can look at. What is our upper price limit, that sort of thing. So we do generally try to get a lender involved pretty early in the process. A lot of times, depending on the business, if they've got pretty strong finances and have a pretty good understanding, it may not be the first building they've ever purchased. So really, it depends on the individual that we're working with.
Yeah. One of the things I really enjoyed working with you in these commercial deals is leasing and representing the leaseor, which is the owner of the building. And you have these companies that are coming in and they want to lease the space. And what I've loved about it the most is one of the criteria that the owner usually, or the landlord, wants to see is financials, or the ability for that leasee, that ability for that tenant to be able to pay their lease ongoing. So we get to learn about these different businesses, which I think is fascinating. We get to see how they're going to operate their business. Recently, we just brought in a very popular bar in the Gilbert, Arizona area, and very popular. And we got to see the expertise that they had behind all of their offerings and their menu. It was just unreal. And so I really love that part. I mean, do you enjoy that part of it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in that case, talking about the leasing, we actually kind of act like a lender would. I mean, our job representing our landlord client is to make sure and vet potential tenants as we're presenting them, just to make sure they've got the financial means to be able to cover the lease payment and any tenant improvement work, things like that need to be done. So
Yep. That's awesome. So far, guys, again, you're listening to Jeff Sutherlin and Rich Galster. We're talking about commercial real estate versus residential real estate. And Rich is my partner down here in Arizona. We do a lot of commercial business, talking about the property types between residential and commercial and financing. Let's move to valuation, Rich. Typically, when you value a property, I was just doing it today, actually. If you're a listing agent and you're about ready to list a property, you're really expected to be able to know what's going on in the area. And so typically we like to pull comps, comparables, and we usually start at the subdivision level and then we move out from there. And we're looking for like property. That's why I love if I can get the same builder in the same subdivision with a very low margin of or a small deviation from the square footage. That's what I'm looking for. I'm also comparing one level properties with one level properties. And so it's starting out at the subdivision level, hopefully within the last 90 days, and then moving out from there. So that's typically how we value property. Now, you can get appraisals as well, which you can bring another third-party professional who's an appraiser, and they use different methods to value property that are a little bit different than what an agent would use. But those essentially are the main ways. Now, the algorithms you see, the algorithms and the portals you see on the internet, you can use those as a guide. But remember, those are algorithms and they don't know the upgrades in the home. They don't know the story behind the home or anything that's going on really in the inside of that house. So don't trust them, but don't trust them, right? And make sure you verify by using somebody that's a professional agent. So how about commercial, Rich? How do we value property on that side?
yeah, commercial is actually quite a bit different than residential. In fact, probably one of the biggest differences, I think one of the biggest challenges as I've worked with residential agents, we get a lot of our referrals from other residential agents, and we have some that always ask about, hey, I've kind of been interested in commercial, like, well, what does it take to be a commercial agent? And I think one of the biggest things really is understanding the math of commercial real estate. So a lot of times the valuations have more to do with return on investment of the property. We calculate things like net operating income and cap rates, and all of those things come into play when you're valuing commercial real estate. And obviously there's a difference too between investment property, of course, and then a property that maybe a business is buying, as an owner user property. But still, in both situations, there's typically a lease involved. Even if the company that's buying the building is actually moving their business there, they still will probably do a lease back to the company, right? So we always look at the income generated by the property and figure out what the valuation is. But we do look at comps. I mean, we'll look at other sales of similar properties. A little more difficult. You kind of mentioned, Jeff, about comparing the same builder, same neighborhood, same floor plan. I mean, you rarely see that in commercial. Sometimes it's very challenging to find a property that is a exact match or a close match from that standpoint. So really, the bottom line is it really has a lot to do with calculating the numbers, figuring out what the investment value is worth on a property.
And the term cap rate is used quite a bit in the commercial side. Could you explain kind of what that is? Why is that such an important metric?
Yeah, the cap rate is just sort of a quick way to analyze a property. The cap rate is calculated by dividing the net operating income of the property by the purchase price or the listing price. So that percentage, you get a percentage. It might be 5%, might be 6%, 7%. The higher that rate, the better potential return on investment you're getting on that property. So when we're working with investors, we're looking for 7, 8 cap properties, whereas owner user might not be quite in the same situation. They may not be looking as much as a investment, but they still, you still want to have a good valuation of the property based on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Rich and I have a mutual client who we dearly respect, and he and his wife started off 20 years ago buying residential real estate and buying them at good prices. And over the last 20-25 years, essentially, he's used the 1031 exchange method to sell his residential properties. He holds it. It's an old-fashioned hold strategy to hold residential for a few years, and then instead of selling it and having to absorb the tax burden, take that profit from that actual transaction and move it into another property, so you defer the taxes on that property. And so I'm telling you this because this is one of my goals as I continue to invest in residential property, is to keep doing that until I get to the point where I can do one of those tax deferred exchanges and move that money into a commercial property. And now our good friend literally has properties in the tens of millions of dollars in terms of his success, just by keeping that up over the years and using sound principles, using a tax strategy that's completely legal, completely above board, and many people use it.
Yeah, basically starting from rental houses, I think, right, Jeff?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's a great story. So if you ever want to talk to me and Rich about that story, and we'd even bring our client into that, he'd probably love to share. He loves to share and help people. And it's really an incredible thing what they've done over the years, just tried and true principles. And
That's a very common formula. You see that across the board. I've worked with a lot of successful people. That was basically the model. They started small, invested in some property, built some equity, use that equity to buy more property, and so on and so forth. So it's a very, very popular strategy on the investment side.
Yep, that's right. And then lastly, today we want to touch on investment versus occupancy for residential and commercial. So in residential, you got pretty much two choices. Are you going to occupy the house? Are you going to live in it? Or are you going to rent it out? Some people do house hacking, so they'll, live in one bedroom sometimes and rent other bedrooms out. That's becoming more popular in certain areas of the country. People are Airbnb-ing, or short-term renting their house. When they own it, you really need to check the local ordinances. You need to check the local HOA, CCNRs, covenants, restrictions. That's all important. So you have to kind of understand up front with residential, why are you doing this? What's the end strategy, right? And you can do very well over the course of your lifetime if you simply own houses and then you keep moving up over time. By the time you get to be a little older, you should be in a position to own a house free and clear if you've done it the right way. But on my side, I specialize with helping people get rentals and helping them understand how to cash flow that. And by going over all the numbers and understanding what the debt service is on that property. So and we can do a little bit of a deeper dive on that too, Rich. We can talk about the differences with the financials. What are we looking at with residential when you rent it out versus leasing a commercial building? What are the differences on your side?
I guess it depends on the type of buyer again, right? If it's a owner user type or investor. If we're assuming an investment, a person buying a property as an investment, again, it's the same. You're just kind of looking at the math, looking at the return on investment of the property. But a lot of times when we're working with investors, it's a matter of, how much money do they have to work with? That's kind of what we gauge with. We can figure out what they can put down, and we can figure out what size property they'd be able to purchase based on that amount. And then we just start looking for investment properties.
Yeah, that's right. And we often use the term price per square foot in commercial, probably a lot more than we do in residential. In residential, like if you're leasing a property, you're going to say, hey, we're leasing the property for $2,000 a month. In commercial, you're usually saying it rents out for X amount per square foot. And then we let them know the different lease types. Rich, could we talk a little bit about that just real quickly? You think it's really just cut and dry with commercial? No, there's like several different lease property to tenants.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, again, kind of comparing residential to commercial, but the language of commercial is almost completely different too. And again, like you said, there's so many variations just in terms of leasing. You have triple net leases, you have full service leases, and typically your full service leases are what you're seeing on like office property. Triple net leases is what you're typically seeing on retail properties and some industrial properties. Basically, the difference is a full service lease, whatever your rate is, and Jeff mentioned price per square foot. We usually calculate either price per square foot per year. On industrial properties, you'll see price per square foot per month. So again, there's just so many different variables to try and keep track of as you're working with different property types. Lease types, like I said, a full service lease type is you see more in office properties, and whatever you're paying per month on a full service lease covers everything. A lot of times it even covers janitorial, cleaning of the space, that sort of thing. When you get into triple net leases, you're paying a base rate plus what they call triple nets, which is to cover real estate taxes on the property, property insurance, all of the common area maintenance for a property. Say you're looking at a multi-tenant retail strip center or something like that. All of those costs are covered by the tenants. So whatever your pro rata share percentage that you are leasing in that property, you're paying, a portion of those expenses. Again, it's a lot of just calculating, what are those numbers and what does it mean in the end? Obviously, for the most part, what potential tenants are looking for, what's it going to cost me per month, right? So we have to kind of take all those things into factor when we're looking for properties.
Yep, 100%. And that's why Rich and I like to run the numbers and take our time with our clients to make sure they know exactly what they're getting into. Like on the residential side, we have a term called PITI. We have such an acronym-filled industry, don't we, Rich? There's so many acronyms for everything. But PITI is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So when we start talking to people about buying a house, we have to remind them it's not just the principal you're paying and the interest you're paying every month. We have to look at the taxes. And every state has different taxes. For property taxes, we have to look at insurance. And look what's happened across the country with insurance rates. They've completely vacillated. They've exploded in some states because of natural catastrophes and such. And not just PITI on residential, but even HOA, right? That's part of it too. HOA fees. And then, you have to factor in fixed costs as a homeowner, utilities, internet, things like that all add up. So it's important to have a budget. And when Rich talks about commercial, yeah, the triple net means you're paying the base rent and you're also paying all that other stuff too. You're paying utilities, you're paying internet, water, sewage, the whole 9 yards, right, Rich?
Yeah, and depending on the property type, you get into some of these new properties where the land was expensive to build on. There's a lot of fancy landscaping and waterfall. I mean, some of those properties, the triple net expenses can add a third to the lease. I mean, I've seen triple nets that exceeded $10 per square foot. Well, if you go into a property at say $30 a square foot, you add another 10. Well, now all of a sudden you're at 40. So you really have to kind of watch all of those numbers to make sure you're not getting into and not to mention those triple nets, every year that they can vary. And of course, they rarely go down, right? Taxes go up, maintenance goes up, that sort of thing. So over time, those triple nets tend to increase as well. So these are all things that you kind of have to factor in your long-term leases.
Yeah. And so one of the things I wanted to tell our audience is, Rich, is the power of data that we have at EXP. We have it on the commercial side and on the residential side. But can you talk a little bit about how much power we have with the demographics and all the different data mining that we can do? For example, if somebody wants to buy a commercial building, typically, if they're smart, they're going to want to know what the economy is like in that area. What kind of income can be derived from that area. So many people that are in commercial wait until an area is built up to a certain amount, right? You need enough households to support restaurants and all these different services. So, but I love the stuff that we have at our disposal at EXP to be able to assist our clients with making these decisions on where they want to lease or where they want to buy.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. We have tremendous data on demographics. So, I mean, we can get as deep into it as you want to. We were working with a client at one point, and they were looking at, it was like cooking school, something like that. So I was even going in and trying to find like, how many people in this area bought cookbooks in the last 12 months. Like, I mean, it's crazy how detailed you can go on that information. Yeah, for certain buyers or tenants looking for spaces in certain areas, absolutely. You want to match the demographics to your customer base. Yeah, tremendous information we have at our disposal. Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you're an agent and you're listening to this, and let's say you're on the residential side, um, that's probably our biggest referral source is helping residential agents with their clients that are interested in commercial. And so just let us know whether you're in Arizona or out of Arizona and you're looking to help somebody here. We also have the ability with Rich's status and EXP commercial to help anyone around the country. And that's a pretty cool, it's called co-brokering, and Rich has that ability to help anyone else around the country. So we're not just limited to Arizona. We really have a nationwide footprint. Anything you want to talk about on that, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, that pretty well covers it. I mean, EXP, one of the cool things about EXP as a company, which obviously you guys know on the residential side as well, but commercial is the same. Our network is anywhere in the country and obviously in other countries. So we can work across state lines. If you have a potential commercial opportunity in another state, we can either partner with somebody out there that's on the ground in that area to service your client. But yeah, for sure. And CoStar, our database that we use on the commercial side, very similar to kind of MLS on the residential side. CoStar, the CoStar subscription that we have through EXP actually covers the entire country. So I actually can search properties in California, Nevada, really anywhere, and the process is kind of the same. So it's just as easy for me to search properties in Arizona as in any other state. Yeah, for sure. We have access to a lot of resources across the country.
Yeah. And we've had some really cool deals over the last few months, exciting deals. We have currently a med spa that's actually a med spa that's for lease up in the Ahwatukee area in Phoenix. We've actually put somebody into an old veterinarian building, which is a large 4,000 square foot building. We've actually helped lease one of our owners' properties, and now a amazing bar is there called the Narwhal Tap In Bottle Room. And this place is killing it. So we've really done a good job diversifying who we're working with. And I know Rich also has hold on a second. We'll start that segment over.
I'm barely getting every other word out of you, Jeff.
How about now?
Yeah, pretty good delay, but.
Okay. Are you still hearing me clearly? It's just delayed?
You did cut out for a little bit as well.
Okay. Am I still cutting out?
Right now it's good.
Okay. How about this? Let me just take it from the top of that segment. I just wanted to talk about some of the successes we've had over the last few months, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think I got most of it, and then, kind of lost it. So.
Okay, perfect. There's a big delay right now. Just give me let me get it out, and then once you hear the end of it, then you can respond, and then we can wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Okay, and I just wanted to share, friends out there, that Rich and I have had an exceptional track record the last few months. We've been really excited. We've helped a gentleman that one of our clients, he and his wife actually lease out one of their properties to an amazing bar owner, and that's called the Narwhal Tap and Bottle Shop. It's been an amazing transaction, and that bar is very successful. I'd encourage you to come check it out. It's in Gilbert, Arizona, and we also have another property for lease in Ahwatukee. It used to be a behavioral health clinic, 6,000 square feet, which can be segmented into smaller suites, a beautiful space. We've now also put someone that's in the medical industry into an old veterinarian clinic, and he's retrofitting that veterinarian clinic. So we've had an absolute great run the last few months with helping very diversified clients. So, and Rich also has a deep background, not only in leasing and buying and purchasing, but he also knows how to do industrial. He knows how to do other facets of commercial as well. So anything you want to add to what's been going on in our world with commercial, Rich?
Yeah, it's just super exciting. I mean, again, like I mentioned before, the referrals that we do get from other agents really can be just about anything. So, I mean, I know my business is 100% referral based, both from what we're getting from agents, also from existing clients. And just a variety of stuff going on right now. So super excited.
This is great. Well, I hope you guys got a little bit of foundation today. We're going to continue next week. Today, we talked about property types, financing, valuation, and investment versus occupancy. Next week, we're going to focus on regulations and zoning, transaction complexity, because it definitely gets complex, especially on the commercial side, and timeframes. And we wanted to go through those next week. And then we can start to unpack a little bit and a little bit more about stories and how to get deals done creatively. And we're excited you're here. So thank you for logging in and listening to us. This is Rich Galster and this is Jeff Sutherlin. And we just appreciate your time and we hope you got some value out of this podcast today.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.